We are going to arrive to probably the most dramatic place of today, the place of the martyrdom of Paul. We were saying that Paul was living in the city of Rome during the period of the Emperor Nero, so the end of his life was coincident with the period of Nero. Nero was a terrible man. In this case we have plenty of sources. Nobody never described Nero as a nice person. Nero was a criminal. Nero was a mass murderer. They say 50,000 victims by the fire of Nero. For sure we know that he ordered to assassinate his mother, his wives, his best friend. So Nero was a terrible man. So we can imagine that for him killing Paul, killing Peter, killing plenty of Christians was nothing. It was part of his being Roman. Anyway, Paul was a Roman citizen, and neither the emperors, neither the worst emperors could go against the rules, go against the law. So Paul was killed as a Roman man could be killed. Not in the city, but outside the city, because the city was sacred for Romans, and so you couldn't assassinate a Roman citizen in the city center. Paul was carried out from the city center, and was carried out following a road, that's the Appian Road, but actually he was killed not on the Appian, on the Laurentina. Laurentina, a road that still exists, despite today the modern one is not exactly the old one. The word Laurentina comes from the Latin laurus, that we translate in English laurel. Laurel, like the laurel plant, because along that road, according with the Roman descriptions, there were these big laurel trees. 4 miles distance outside from the city center, 4 miles was the border of the city of Rome. They stopped, Paul prayed for the last time, and then they cut his head in the place where we are going to see the church of Saint Paul at the Three Fountains. We have to open a small parenthesis. Why the Three Fountains? In this case, we have once again a Christian story. When I say a story, I mean, guys, that in this case it's a legend. But I have to tell you this legend. The story says that when they cut the head of Paul, the head made 3 bounds on the ground, and for 3 times a spring of water raised up. In this case I can tell you that's a story because we have Roman documents written before the death of Paul, in which they describe that area as 3 fountain area. So the 3 fountains already exist, and this is something that maybe because of the emotion, because of the feelings moved by there. You have to imagine when Christians went there to take the body of Paul and they found the 3 springs and the head down there, they felt something, and maybe they enriched the story with this. But it's true, historically true, that Paul died down there. Now, we have to imagine that the area of the 3 fountains today is a big complex, a big area. It's an abbey, so it means there have been friars for many centuries. It's a place with a very long story, a story that starts with the Emperor Constantine and continues during Middle Age, during the centuries. Down there has been Charlemagne, Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, sleeping for one night. There have been the rest of Saint Athanasius. There have been friars of the Benedictine order, Cistercienses, and finally Trappists, the ones who are still down there. So we have to imagine an area that's not only related with Paul, but it's related with all the history of Christian religion and Christian Catholic Church in the city of Rome. There isn't only one single church, there are 3 different: Saint Anastasius, Saint Paul, that's the place where Paul was killed, and the so-called Holy Stairs, Scala Coeli, because actually it's a church built on top of the small grotto where Paul was praying before then being killed. We are going to see the 3 of them. The Roman religion wasn't the real religion. The old Romans didn't believe in gods. The old Romans didn't pray. The old Romans delegate prayers to the professions, to the priest of their pagan religion, and every time they conquered a new country, a new province, they were so much superstitious and scared, they absorbed the gods of that country in their religion, and this is something that also Paul underlines, because here in Rome there was, at the time of Paul, the Pantheon, that still exists. Pantheon pantheon, all the gods. It was a temple dedicated to all the gods of Roman religion, but they weren't Roman gods. There were Roman gods, but then there were Greeks, Egyptians, Syrians, and there was a niche dedicated to the unknown God, just in case they forgot one. And that's why Paul says, you already pray the right God, but you don't know his name. That's why you leave it unknown. That's the only one you should pray. And actually the old Romans were so much terrified by the idea of not praying well that they didn't pray at all. They left priests praying, and they only took care about not making the gods getting angry. This is something, for example, that many people forget. But the old Romans, until the 1st century before Jesus, so until 100 years before than Paul, they still did the human sacrifice. I know that when I say human sacrifice, people think about the forest and maybe the Mexican pyramids. But the old Romans did human sacrifice too, so it was a dark place. And the gods of the old Romans weren't good. They were like the human being, jealous, mean, sometimes cruel. The only difference was that they were forever young and forever strong. Jesus didn't leave Christians free to be cruel and mean, pretending to be religious. They ask, if you think about the great strength of Jesus, is saying, all the law I can synthesize in 2 things: love each other and love the Father. Love each other and love the Father means that you can't worship the emperor, because the emperor is not your father. The emperor is the emperor. Pay taxes, give Caesar what's Caesar. And then love each other means that you can't say women are inferior, slaves are not human beings, foreigners are to hate, and barbarians, or in general the ones who live over the border, we have to invade and kill. No. So it means that if you were a good Christian, you couldn't be a good Roman citizen. This is the reason why Romans hate Christians. Not the religious side, strict religious meaning, but the social effects that religion was bringing in Roman Empire. And actually, these effects were not stopped, but amplified, maybe enlarged by the persecutions, because Christians faced the persecutions, starting from Paul and Peter, not crying and asking to be saved, but sometimes smiling, laughing, making jokes, because for them death wasn't the end, was the beginning of a new life. And we know it by Appian, who described these Christians that look like crazy. Look like crazy because they went facing the martyrdom, instead of crying or sad, laughing, happy. We have this story of Saint Lawrence, you know, Saint Lawrence killed on a gridiron, that while he was being grilled alive, he said, laughing, please turn me back or you will burn me. So we were saying, the idea of the Three Fountain Abbey is an abbey that was born in the 7th century and later on raised up in the 8th and in the 9th, dedicated to Saint Anastasius with Benedictine friars. Later on, in the 16th century, the Cardinal Aldo Brandini ordered to build on top of the place of the martyrdom of Paul a church, actually a basilica, dedicated to Saint Paul at the Three Fountains, where are the 3 fountains protected by a niche, protected by an altar, and the original Roman mosaics that they found around that area. The place of the martyrdom of Paul, surrounded by the walls of Three Fountains Abbey, is the place we are entering right now. Not only Paul, but also another important man lived here, the man you see here on this statue, Saint Benedict, the first friar, the one who created the idea of the monastery. Actually, Benedict, protector of Italy and Europe, because in the monasteries, in the Benedictine monasteries, was born the idea of global community of the church, because down there, barbarians and Romans lived together after the falling of Roman Empire as brothers, following the rule of Benedict, ora et labora, pray and work. And we're going to end